Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Samadharasika ki, Shila Prabhupada ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. Should we have a light on that? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Sarasating Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. To Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Paskatadi Sadharini. So we're continuing with Canto 3, Remembrance of Lord. Is that the name of the chapter or the name of the... No, it's the status quo, okay. And the chapter is chapter 2, Remembrance of Lord Krishna, and it's text 22. Please repeat. Tat Tasya Kainkaryam Alam Britan No Tat Tasya Kainkaryam Alam Britan No Viglabayati Anga Yad Ugrasena Viglapayat Anga Yad Ugrasenam Tishtan Nishanam Paramesti Dishyai Tishtan Nishanam Paramesti Dinye Tishtan Nishanam Paramesti Disne Nabodayad Deva Nidarayiti Nabodayad Deva Nidarayiti Tattasya Kankayamalam Brittano Viglapayat Angayat Ugrasenam Tishtan Nishanam Paramesti Dishye Nyabodaya Devani Darayati Nadaya Devanayati Tattasya Kankayalam Brittam No Viglapayat Angayat Ugrasenam Tishtan Nishanam Paramesti Dishye Nabodaya Deva Nidara Yeti. Anyone else like to try? Tattasya kanyam malabrittikanyo
Vigapadayati angayat ugrasenam Krishnan nishanam paraveshti dishne Yabodayat deva nidarayeti
Yabodaya Deva Nidayati. That's the way it's supposed to be done. So, anyone else? Tattasya kanyam alagritanyo Someone else? Anyone?
Tattasya kankaryamala pritano Viglapayatai angayaru gresnam Distan nisanam paramesti dishne Yabo yadeva nirarayeti Tattasya kankaryamalam pritano Viglapayati angayaru gresnam Distan paramesti dishne Yabo yadeva nirarayeti.
Is that everyone? So, word for word translation is Tat. Tat. Therefore. Tasya.
Tasya
His.
his
Kankayam.
kankaryam
service.
service.
Alam,
Alam,
of course.
of course.
Pritan,
Ritan,
the servitors.
the servitors.
Na,
Now,
us.
us.
Viglapayan yati, viglapayati, gives pain.
Gives pain.
Anga,
Anga,
O Vidura.
Vidura.
Yat,
Yat,
as much as.
as much as.
Ugrasenam,
Ugrasena,
unto Ugrasena.
Ugrasena.
Tastan,
Yastam,
being seated.
being seated.
Nishanam,
Ishana,
waiting upon.
waiting upon.
Paramesti dishye,
Paramestidishye,
on the royal throne.
on the royal throne.
Yabadyata,
Yaroyata,
submitted.
submitted.
Deva,
Deva,
addressing my Lord.
addressing my Lord.
Hidadaya,
Hidaya,
please know
please know.
it. Iti,
Iti,
thus.
thus.
By the way, I would like to welcome back Lakshmana Shringa. He's been away for a while. And, in the future, please be, what I'm saying. His wife was in anxiety. So, please read, I'll read the translation and you can repeat. Therefore, O Vidura, please, therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain it? I'm going to read it, then you repeat with me, okay? Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, "Oh my Lord, please let it be known to you." Now, please repeat. Therefore, O Vidura,
O Vidura,
does it not pain us,
does it not pain us,
his servitors,
his servitors,
when we remember
when we remember
that he, Lord Krishna,
that he, Lord Krishna,
used to stand before King Ugrasena,
used to stand before King Ugrasena,
who was sitting on the royal throne,
who was sitting on the royal throne,
and used to submit
and used to submit
explanations
explanations
before him,
before him,
saying,
saying,
"O my Lord,
"O my Lord,
please let it be known to you."
please let it be known to you."
So this is Uddhava still speaking after he's just witnessed Krishna's departing from this terrestrial plane. And there's a section in the 11th canto, it's called the Uddhava Gita. And actually it's it's basically like the Bhagavad Gita, but it's much more relaxed environment. They're sitting under some trees, the shade of the trees, not in the center of the Kshatriya's testosterone ready to go to battle. Arjuna's having a panic attack basically. What am I doing here? This is not right. I can't do this. There must be another way. Think of all the repercussions. And Krishna's settling him down and giving him this transcendental knowledge, confidential transcendental knowledge. And we've been allowed, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and the disciplic succession, to actually eavesdrop on that. And on Christmas Day is the advent of the Bhagavad Gita. And so that's a very auspicious day to read the entire Bhagavad Gita and to give in charity a Bhagavad Gita to someone. And maybe they'll give in charity back. But that's not the point, is to give the knowledge that's needed for human society. This is real compassion. This is the way you change things. It's not one ism over another ism, or one political party over another political party. You can't legislate a higher consciousness. You can't change people's, you can't be a racist anymore, you can't, commit these things or do that. You actually have to raise their consciousness with transcendental knowledge. And it's not easy to teach transcendental knowledge. It's not easy to teach even material knowledge that's beneficial if someone's stubborn or not willing to listen. And there's a lot of competing factors in this Kali Yuga. So, but we're very fortunate, and we get a chance to hear these intimate conversations. Uddhava has just come from this conversation with Krishna. It wasn't a 45-minute discussion, It was more leisurely, but Krishna was getting ready to leave, and he gave him all the same knowledge, and it's in the 11th, but a little in a slightly different way, and it's all in the 11th canto. So the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And he's run into Vidura, who's been on pilgrimage for 30 or 35 years. And they just happened to meet by chance on the bank of the Jamuna. Purport. Lord Krishna's gentle behavior before his so-called superiors, such as his father, grandfather, and elder brother, his amiable behavior with his so-called wives, friends, and contemporaries, his behavior as a child before his mother Jasoda, his naughty dealings with his young girlfriends, cannot bewilder a pure devotee like Uddhava. Others, who are not devotees, are bewildered by such behavior of the Lord, who acted just like a human being. This bewilderment is explained by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 11th verse, as follows. Avajananti mam mudha manusim tanu ashritam param bhavam ajanato mam bhuta maheshwaram. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge belittle the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, not knowing his exalted position as the Lord of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained his position clearly, but the demonic atheistic student squeezes out an interpretation to suit his own purpose and misleads unfortunate followers into the same mentality. Such unfortunate persons merely pick up some slogans from the great book of knowledge, but are unable to estimate the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees like Uddhava, however, are never misled by such atheistic opportunities. I'll read the verse one more time. Therefore, O Vidura, does it not pain us, his servitors, when we remember that he, Lord Krishna, used to stand before King Ugrasena, who was sitting on the royal throne, and used to submit explanations before him, saying, "Oh, my Lord, please, let it be known to you." Om Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. You know, this verse actually, there's two parts to this. There's this first part about remembering Krishna and experiencing that pain because now you're separated. And there's some other points here about the relationships that Krishna had that appear to be just like the same relationships that we all have with our family members and friends. And then there's the third part where he's talking about how the atheists misinterpret Krishna's activities and try to compare himself or themselves to him. The verse itself, though, when I first read it this morning, this is a perfect verse for, I think it's October 18th, Prabhupada's disappearance. Because, November 18th. So, I think it's in 2 weeks, actually. And we all have some experience with grandparents or parents or friends, loved ones, that were here and then they move on. Whereabouts unknown. And of course, we always have this slogan that they've gone to a better place, and we hope so. But nobody stays here forever. So, but the place stays, and we leave, and so we live in their memories. We live with them in our memories of them, and no matter what kind of relationship we have with them, the more you love them, the more you feel the pain. And there's also And it's a bittersweet pain. I mean, you think about, oh, this was so nice, and you're like, oh, I wish I could have done this, and I could have done that. And I think there was a song in the 80s. It was called In the Living Years. I remember hearing it once or twice. And basically, the essence of it is that this man has a son, and he's thinking about his own father, and he wishes that while he was alive, he could have, said this or done that, or not acted in this way or that way, in the living years. And now he's trying to do that with his son, to make sure that he has those relations in a way that his son will appreciate his grandfather and so on. So, and for all of us who are servants of Srila Prabhupada, we feel the same way. That's a pain that we feel that, if I could have only done more, or I misused this opportunity. Because sometimes when you're right in front of the spiritual master, you become shy, or you become, complacent, familiarity, or you just don't know what to say or do. And then after the moment has passed, you think, oh, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I tell him this? So that's where the pain comes in. But the memories is that's how we're able to associate with them, through those memories. And we're very fortunate that one of his disciples, Siddhanta Prabhu, has gone around extracting all of these memories from it's gold, hearing these devotees, whether they're so-called quote-unquote big devotees, or devotees who are rank-and-file devotees, and or devotees who have fallen away or something and come back. All of their memories are so sweet, and there's a basic running theme throughout all of them, and there is no script that they pick up on. It's just they have the same kind of inner monologue feelings towards Prabhupada, but also just hearing their own personal realizations of Prabhupada, and their own realizations of the meaning of having a relationship with a spiritual master, and how fortunate they feel to have had a relationship with their spiritual master. And those opportunities are there now, because a spiritual master is a bona fide disciple, and there are bona fide disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And you can take shelter of those bona fide disciples and receive the mercy. That was Prabhupada's mission. And it was right from the very beginning. There's always this controversy about the letters towards the end, this whole thing about Ritvikism. But if you listen, even in 1966, on the storefront, he's saying that you should become students of this philosophy, and you should then, you yourself should become gurus of your family, gurus of your village, gurus of your country. Pass this knowledge on. He never was saying, I'm the only one ever that will be. And of course there's extraordinary, empowered devotees that descend. So, and that is where this other part at the bottom here takes us, I think, is that the atheists are thinking that Krishna's activities, they try to compare them to their own. And that's like if you're in a prison house. This is a classic example that Srila Prabhupada gives. You're in a prison house, and then all of a sudden the governor comes into the prison house. And the governor is representing the king or whatever. But you're thinking, you see the governor in the prison house, you say, see, he's just like us. He's here, we're here. But the difference is the governor can come and go as he likes. And he's not there because he has committed some crime to society or to be reformed. So sometimes Krishna comes himself into the prison house, or sometimes he sends some of his bona fide representatives in order to see what the conditions are in the prison house and then help reform them. help, bring them out of this prison house. Like the Lord Jesus Christ was an empowered person, the pure Son of God. Prabhupada spoke like that. Prabhupada said that he is our guru. And to give you an example also of how you can be a bona fide disciple of a guru, even in other lines. When Prabhupada was in Australia, he was at the Franciscan monastery, and Prabhupada wanted to know what their philosophy was, what Saint Francis taught, and the devotees told him Saint Francis used to see brother sun, sister moon, so the birds as his sisters, the trees as his brothers. He saw all the living entities as related to the Father. And Prabhupada's eyes get real big. He goes, oh, this is real God consciousness. This is real God consciousness. So that's a disciple of Jesus Christ who had some divine revelations and tried to live on that platform. And from that, then they discussed about the name Christ comes from, I think it was Greek, Christos, which is meaning the anointed. Christos, Krishna. Christos, Christ, Krishna. Oh, Christ, Christos, Krishna. So they started to chant together, the monks and the devotees. And they were saying Christos, and it eventually became Krishna. It was really an ecstatic moment. So, and it's on video, in the Yadabar's following Srila Prabhupada. And I had an experience where, when Prabhupada came to Atlanta, I had been developing a relationship with, outside of Atlanta, there is a monastery, and they're Trappist monks. But the head of the Trappist monks was a Jesuit. There's different orders within Catholicism. The Jesuits are like the intellectuals. And when Bhagavanta and I went in to talk to him, to ask if it's all right if some of these novices could come and see our spiritual master, and we were asking him to come. His first question was, are you personalist or impersonalist? Which really blew us away. This person actually is not just another, sectarian kind of, I am the way, the truth, and the light. And he declined, but he was apologetic. He couldn't go, but he said it's okay that some of these young men could go because they were doing what they called japa yoga. They were actually on their rosaries chanting Jesus Christ, like chanting his names. And there is an order of, I can't remember, but it's somewhere in the Middle East, in Syria. There's a very isolated monastery with a few monks still following this, and they sort of follow in the mood of whoever it was that went out into the desert and fasted and was meditating on Jesus for many, many months. They follow that, and they're meditating and chanting Jesus Christ. I'm sure there's a little bit more to their theology. I just happened to read a little bit about it. So anyway, the point is that when these individuals come, they're coming, they're not entangled. If you notice, like a spider has the ability to make a web that everyone else gets entangled in, but they don't. And it's almost like a city, it's a mystic power. I can recall, especially in Tennessee, be walking down, when I lived in this one part of Tennessee, I was renting a farmhouse on 160 acres, and there was a caretaker, but my wife and I just had the house, and be walking down the road, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of the road, there'd be this tiny little spider, just floating there, levitating almost. And the canopies were like 20 feet up of the trees, and you don't see the thread. But he's just floating there. And then when you start walking to it, he just starts going up again. Very interesting. But we're in a prison house, which is a web of our own design. We have created the web for ourselves. Every action is our reaction, and it's what's keeping us here in this material world. And the spiritual master is, and who's representing the cyclic succession, and or an actual incarnation, when he comes, he can lead you on a path out of the web. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get still have some problems and find yourself caught up by the web, hanging, by your ankle upside down, trying to figure out how to get back up on your 2 feet. These things happen, even while following Bhakti Yoga. Like one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, when we're practicing the path on the path of Bhakti Yoga, you say that we're no longer in the modes of material nature, we're transcendent. So, but sometimes I feel passionate, I feel ignorant, I feel the effect of the modes. And Srila Prabhupada gave the example of, it's an ocean, and the waves in the ocean are the 3 modes of material nature. And right now, you've been pulled out of the ocean, and you're on a boat, and the boat is ISKCON, or the teachings of the spiritual master. And you have to have faith that your spiritual master is an expert captain who knows how to fly through the ocean. And the winds and the sails are the Vedic literatures that we're following. If you stare too long over the other side, one day, someday, a wave may come and you may fall back over back into the ocean. And then you have to be rescued again. So we must be very careful. And so, but on the boat, you're not in the ocean, but you are feeling the movement of the waves, the passion, the ignorance, the goodness, like that. So, for the atheist to conclude, well, Krishna did this, like Mother Donna Kelly was talking yesterday about this, and I was thinking before she said it, that the hardest people to preach to are converted Hindus. And I have some direct experience from that. And, they'll start saying these very awful things, very blasphemous things. But one quick little thing is that, and I mentioned this before, twice in India, once outside the Calcutta temple, there's a little park, and then once sitting on Juhu Beach with my first wife and my son. And there was a young man, and he found out we were from America, and he was thrilled. And in the course of the conversation, we explained to him that, there is poverty in America, and there is crime in America. And they have been taught by the Christian missionaries that there's no crime here, and there's no poverty. And by my saying that, I was committing an offense to heaven, practically. It was like offending, it was like an opera. They said, no, that's not true, no, don't say that. You're shattering their illusion. But another time, back in the early 70s, in this old Atlanta temple, there was a small little family. It was growing from 6 to 12, like that, 18. And it was growing exponentially at one point. And then, so whenever we had some kind of a major preaching engagement, we'd all go together. And so there was a Hindu Christian professor at South DeKalb Community College. And he challenged us to a debate in an amphitheater. So we all started studying Old Testament, New Testament. We really got into it. And we were like armed and ready to the teeth. And of course also the Bhagavad Gita and so on. And I was sitting there with the cartels. You got like 3 minutes to talk, or 5 minutes to talk, and then I'd ring the cartel, and then the person could speak. It was going back and forth like that. And at the end, They were all like the one devotee surrounded by, say, 8 or 10 or 12 people, and they're all shooting things back at us, and we're coming back at them. It was like being in the battle of in the Kurukshetra battles, So, but it's not that we're here to defeat. Or Prabhupada always said that, he encouraged people. He said, "You are very fortunate. You have accepted a bona fide guru. Now follow his instructions." And his first question is, "Thou shalt not kill." He said, "Well, I don't kill." "Well, do you eat meat?" "Yes." "Well, that's killing." No, they don't have souls. So they have, their own rationalizations, and they need to rationalize because they can't otherwise get up in the morning. And they can make some accusations about Krishna's activities. One thing is that every nun in the Catholic Church has a wedding ring on. And you know why? They're all married to Jesus. So how many wives does Jesus have? It's a spiritual thing. So, but Prabhupada, even like I remember when he was in Atlanta, one person came, he was part of the Yogi Bhajan movement, and he asked Prabhupada some question, but I don't remember what it was. And Prabhupada said to him, "You are very fortunate, because you have accepted a bona fide guru, Guru Nanak." Now, Guru Nanak had association with Lord Nityananda, as far as I understand. And they have a scripture called the Grantha, which is on their altar. Like Prabhupada said, if you have no deities, you can put the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam and worship that. It's a scripture, it's Krishna. And so they worship the Grantha. But also his instruction was also read the Bhagavad Gita and chant Hari Rama. So Prabhupada said, so you're very fortunate. You should study the Grantha and chant Hare Krishna, chant Hari Rama, and study Bhagavad Gita. He never said, "Oh, you must change. You must come conversion." He encouraged them in the position they were at, but at the same time trying to raise them up. Because this is not a sectarian religion. This happens to be a process that teaches us how to act, how to think, how to speak, how to desire. The main thing is learning how to desire and how to relate with one another. It's not an easy thing. It's not, this process is very simple, but it's not easy because we have so much conditioning and we have so much bad association in the material world. Just go out into Walmart. It's like, there's so much, you're being bombarded with so many things, and especially if you're trying to be a brahmachari. But I'm just speaking as a man, but there's so many other misconceptions, and this looks really nice, and wouldn't that be great to have one of those little toys? How about that toy over there? And they're very expert in coming out, like this whole thing with the smartphones, which I still haven't surrendered to. I know it's coming close because I have a very old flip phone, and I know eventually it'll run out. But it seems like you guys, anyone who has a smartphone, you're constantly having to upgrade to the next thing. And it's a trap, it's a circle. It's and Prabhupada was not, like I was saying before, it's not a question of any particular political system or a sectarian religion. So in some ways, Prabhupada was very capitalistic in terms of the management of his book trust. But he was also very socialistic in the sense of his compassion for everyone and seeing everyone equally but different and providing for everyone. Because Krishna's doing that. So what we are is transcendentalists. We don't follow any particular, we're trying to become transcendental to the web. I wasn't trying, but the World Wide Web, or the web that we created by the spider, by our own actions. We're trying to become transcendental to this material world. We want to go home. we're living in a shadow. We're everything around us is shadows, and it's and Krishna's the light. We turned away from him for a few moments, and now we find ourselves here for a long time. And this is a process of waking us up and bringing us back to the light, back to the personality from which we came from. But he doesn't want to force his love on us. He wants us to love him, because we love him. We don't. He gives us the free will. We have free will, but we'll never be able to be proprietors or controllers. I remember the impersonalists, when we used to have, there used to be a lot. You mentioned in the classes a lot of New Age. Well, back in the 70s, the late 60s, there was a lot of, the Maharishis, the Guru Maharajis, this Yogi, Satchidananda, all these different, the Munis. There were so many different groups. And, some of them would say things like, well, if Krishna is God, can't he make me God? And, well, yeah, he could do anything, but you know what the correct answer is to that? He made you God. That still makes him superior to you. He can make you a demigod, but he's the original candle. You'll never become God. And if we're all one, then if you get liberated, then I automatically should get liberated as well. If you're taking your logic, but where these things are, it's really, when you actually study, or not too carefully, but try to understand the mindset of the impersonalists, it's really not very intelligent, and it's really offensive to God. Nivishesha Sunyavadi. That's what our prayer is to Prabhupada. He's coming to the Western countries. One of my senior godbrothers told me once, he was wondering about these Nivishesha Sunyavadis, these impersonalists and voids. And then all of a sudden he realized that was me. I'm the person he's talking about. Because it's in our mindset. We don't realize how much we're conditioned. So, what time does the class end? Is this the ending time?
You're okay, 8:15.
Well, anyway, maybe I say, anyway, so Krishna's activities, this, in other words, we're here in the perverted reflection of reality. Prabhupada came from reality. When I saw him, for the first time, I saw reality. I saw a real person. Everyone else is playing some part. They've seen somebody in a movie, they've read something in a book about some great person, and they manufacture an ego around those desires and around those things. They don't know who they are. Prabhupada knew exactly who he was and who all the rest of us are. And because he comes from reality, he was in reality. And so there is a reality. So when Krishna does things with his mother, with his cowherd friends, or with his girlfriends, that's reality, and what we do is a perverted reflection of it. We're trying to imitate the Creator, and we can never be the Creator, and it's offensive, but we can be a part of it, because we are a part of it, eternally. So it's a very simple process, but it's not easy, and we use, like, if you have some feelings towards Jesus Christ or Guru Nanak or whoever it is, that's okay. You can still be achieve success. Just add Krishna. Whatever you do, just add Krishna. Prabhupada said. Just chant Hare Krishna while you're driving in your car, taking a shower, whatever. Just get your mind trained to constantly say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. And you'll hear it all the time. and we'll feel the bliss and the ecstasy that we're hankering for. It's not here. We get some sweet taste, and then after a few, it gets boring. So we have to get into something more dark or whatever. Always looking for something new. But it's all inside of us already. Everything we wanted. Anyway, so is there any questions or comments? I hope I covered the purport and verse. Anyone has anything they'd like to say? No questions? You agree with me? Or?
I do actually have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, in the original Vedic literature, I'm asking, does it clearly state that Krishna is supreme personality of Godhead, and if so, how do persons find it easy to interpret, make it easy to put themselves on the level of Krishna or even other demigods on the level of Krishna? How do they interpret it in that way?
Well, there's a lot there, but there's a lot of places where Krishna is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Vishnu is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very creative, and there are places where there's describing Krishna as not having. What they're saying is that he has no hands, no legs, he has no senses, no material.
Mm-hmm.
But it means spiritual. So they can take and things and twist it to it's like a pretzel logic. They try to twist themselves around. Like, I remember, there's a verse in the second chapter that says, Krishna's telling Arjuna, some hear of the soul as amazing. Some speak of the soul as amazing. Some describe the soul as amazing. And others, even after hearing about the soul, cannot understand them at all. And I remember opening up a Bhagavad Gita translated by one of these prominent impersonalists, and that very verse, he says, some hear of the soul as amazing, some describe the soul as amazing, but we can never understand it. I mean, Krishna's saying they say that you can't, and then he's saying, no, we can't understand it. And then also they just go, like Maharishi only went up to the 6th chapter, because in the Bhagavad Gita, because after the 6th chapter, it gets dicey, because Krishna is saying, I am, Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matak Sarva Pravatate. He's saying, from me everything is coming. Majaksena Prakati Sriyati Sacharataram Hetunanena Kanteya Jagat Vibhava Vivartate. This material world is mine. I am controlling everything. He says it all throughout the Bhagavad Gita. He declares it, and then he shows it's amazing. He shows that he is the entire creation. But this is all insignificant. It's a small spark of my splendor. Tiny. It's like a piece of, just a chip of a diamond. His wealth, all the universes, and that is limited at the spiritual world. Is unlimited. And the pleasure, there's so many dimensions. Like, I was telling a pastime of Kaliya Serpent last week about how Krishna was dancing on Kaliya's head. And some devotee told me after the class that when Jai Dvaita Maharaj was here, he had referenced I think it was a translation of a book by Kavi Kanapur, one of the bona fide Vaishnav writers, poets. He was empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And His Holiness Bhanu Swami, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, he's expert in translating literatures. And in that pastime, he's saying that actually in another dimension, in the Krishna book it says that the gopis, they were young girls, and watching him dance on the hoods of the serpent, they were becoming more and more in love with him, more and more attracted to him. But in this Kavi Kanapur's, there's another dimension, that Krishna is actually dancing the Ras Leela with the gopis on the hoods of Kaliya serpent. There's so many dimensions, we can never, It's unlimited. We try to make everything beginning, middle, end. But when I try to think existence, he just exists. As soon as there's the sun, there's sunshine. So we also exist. There's no beginning. There's no end. That is really hard to comprehend. So, so they try to limit everything and cut it down and make him appear to be, they decry his activities and say that he appears to be lusty or why is he killing these people? But his actions are all auspicious. And those people that he kills, they get liberation. They get freedom from sin, even though they're envious of him. They have different types of liberations, but is that all right?
Yeah, that helped a lot. And
Good.
as time goes by,
yeah.
I plan on reading all the Vedic literature as time goes by.
The main thing is to read Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada gave us what we needed.
Yeah.
And then, once you do that, do it again. That's right. You know.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes? Oh, I thought you were going like that. Okay then. Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.